Going live now, so give it about 10, 15 seconds. I'll point at you. Okay.
Okay, we'll call to order the special board meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education via video teleconference. For roll call, it looks like all members are present, 4 in person and 1 on the teleconference. Ms. Cooper has let us know that there are no public comments, so we will move on to the work session items of the agenda for superintendent search selection. The first item on the agenda is posting on KDE and KSBA website. And Mr. Don Martin from KSBA is here to kind of help us navigate through this process. So Mr. Martin, I'll let you take over now.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure again to be with the Woodford County Board of Education, good people at Woodford County. This will begin the first night of several nights over the next couple to 3 months in this process of choosing a new superintendent for the Woodford County School District. So tonight's planning meeting, we have some items that we need to get addressed. One of them is the posting. It is my recommendation that tomorrow that I contact Ms. Cooper at the Woodford County Board of Education office and have her to instruct whoever is in charge of posting vacant positions for the district to go ahead and post that with the Kentucky Department of Education, with myself as the contact, with my email address at don.mark@ksba.org and my phone number, which is on the stationery. And then we will have a discussion in a few minutes about when we want that posting to cease and how long the board would like to have the position open before we finish taking applications. So when we decide all that, we will also have it posted on the Kentucky School Board Association site. We'll have that up by Friday at the latest. And then at that point, I will inform all the superintendent's offices in Kentucky that the Woodford County Board of Education is seeking a new superintendent for that position, and I will give them the details of when the deadline for the application period will be. So, if that's okay with everyone, that will be the first item. Do you want me to instruct, have a meeting, conference call meeting with Ms. Cooper and Mr. Hawkins tomorrow to make sure we get all the details lined out about posting on the KDE site? That is required 30 days minimum. Of course, like every other posting in Kentucky, we can lengthen that as much as we want. We don't have to stick to a certain date. I think in my timeline, I had on the draft timeline, application closing March 12th, but we can move that around. So I would like for that to be addressed first, please.
Okay. First off, Mr. Hawkins, does that work for you to schedule a time to speak with Mr. Martin? Okay.
Garrett will be the one posting it. Yeah. Mr. Wells will be the one posting it.
Okay. Mr. Martin, I'm not sure if you can hear Ms. Cooper. She's a little bit removed from the microphone.
I did not hear that.
Okay. She said that Garrett Wells will be the one that is doing the posting, so she'll reach out to you for a time to schedule to make that call so that you guys can discuss that tomorrow.
Okay. I said Ms. Cooper because I plan on making contact with her tomorrow to begin the details of the search committee for the Woodford County School District. So we will make sure I contact the correct person for that.
That sounds good. And I guess the next thing that we as a board need to address is the timeline as far as how long we want to leave that open, with the thought that most postings are done for 30 days. And the timeline that Mr. Martin has provided, is there any input on that? And we'll just go around the room. Ms. Springate?
No, this is a timeline, Mr. Martin, that most districts that you've worked with have used, and it's been, they've been able to find candidates and move through the process okay with having it, if it goes out this week and closes on April the 12th, seems sufficient to you?
March.
Oh, I'm sorry, March 12th. Thank you. Oh, can you hear me?
Maybe not. Mr. Martin, the question is, have you seen with other districts that the 30-day time frame on KDE is a successful time to get a good number of applicants?
Well, to be honest with you, 80% of everyone that applies for positions wait till the last week anyway. as you can imagine, in a lot of cases, if we left it up there for 3 months, they would wait till the last week to get that. I would, if it was me, I would have something between the 30 and 60-day window. I just picked March 12th out of off the calendar, but it could be any day. If you wanted to go 6 weeks, we could do that. But really, I don't think there's any correlation to the amount of time that you post it after the 30-day window and the number of applications that you will receive.
Thank you. I mean, I think that sounds fine, and your expertise, we certainly appreciate that, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Springate. Ms. Richardson?
The only question I have is that once we close that out, how long does it typically take between that time and when we have a new superintendent that's ready to start? My only concern is that we'll have someone ready to start as soon as Mr. Hawkins is ready to go. Yeah,
here is what usually happens in that case. It's a fairly lengthy time. So if you look at that, if I call your attention to that draft timeline, I will just go through the steps that we will have at that point. So while the position is being posted, we're going to be choosing, the stakeholders are going to be choosing the Superintendent Search Committee. KRS statute states that this committee, with 6 members, maybe 7, according to the minority representation on the committee. We'll discuss that later. But anyway, that will take place during the month of February while people are applying for this position. We hope to have that done by the end of February. That will be 1 board member, 2 teachers, 1 principal, 1 parent, 1 classified member. Where am I leaving out? I didn't say there's 6 of them altogether. Anyway, those stakeholder groups will be choosing their representatives. And then when the posting period ends, and I have March 12th, but that could change if the board wishes to. I will give my secretary ample time to gather all that information together, even though applicants are applying through the internet to a secure mailbox. There's a lot of information in there that my secretary has to accumulate before she can generate a useful form. So that second joint meeting, tentatively I had for March 22nd. We'll give her about a week to get all that together. That March 22nd meeting is where I will meet jointly with the search committee and the board to give out the demographic information of the candidates, how many candidates we have, how many current superintendents, how many current principals, how many men, how many women, how many in-state, how many out-of-state, all of that demographic information. And also be a chance for the board to address to the committee the criteria that they want the committee to concentrate on. And we'll get to how we determine that a little bit later in the meeting. So after that meeting with the board, I turn the board loose. I keep the search committee there for their first meeting. We will meet for about 4 to 5 weeks, doing video interviews of people that we want to talk with, formulating the questions and all of that. And that will take place until the second joint meeting, which is April 19th. That will be the next meeting where the Board of Education and the search committee will come back together. At that point, we'll go into closed session because the search committee will give their recommendations to the board on that night, tentatively scheduled for April 19th, of what they found out about all these candidates that applied for the position. Like I said, it will be in closed session. They will be making their recommendation in alphabetical order, not in numerical order or order of preference. They will have a list of 3, 5, 6, whatever the board dictates that they want. from the search committee, and that will be done in closed session. At that point, the search committee is dismissed, and the board reboots the whole process. You'll have all the information that the search committee had access to, all the folders, all the candidates, and basically you will have time at that point to go through all of those and decide the people that the board wants to speak with. Now, the law says that the Board of Education can employ anyone that applies for the position that's certified. But the law also says that the board should take into account the recommendations of the search committee. Doesn't mean that they are required to hire people recommended by the search committee, but they have to consider them. So, on that draft timeline, I have that second meeting on April 19th. I gave a couple weeks there for the board to begin interviews and then name the superintendent like the third week of May. Now, all that is fluid at this point. I usually, from my experience of doing this with 20-some districts, that's a pretty good time to name a superintendent. It gives ample time for the new person to transition with Mr. Hawkins before he would have his last day. It also, we don't want to have it too early because we want the teachers, the kids, everyone to focus on the things they're supposed to be focusing on in Woodford County and not a new leader. So if I was a betting man about an ideal time, that would be about my time I would recommend, about the end of April. Then the board could name superintendent right about the 1st of May. That would give all of May and maybe a week or two in June to transition with Mr. Hawkins. And that's, from my experience, that's pretty good.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further, Ms. Richardson?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Ms. McHale?
No further questions for you.
Okay. Ms. Glass?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right. Mr. Hawkins, do you have any thoughts on that? I'm looking at our school calendar, and looks like our spring break ends on April 2nd. So the 5th works for having people back for that if we are able
I did look at your
thank you. Okay.
at your calendar, and I tried to stay away from meetings that week for fear of some members of the search committee might be out of town.
Okay. And once these dates, so I assume that the only date that is actually kind of set in stone is that 30-day closure on the window. The rest of the dates are flexible as needed if conflicts come up.
Yeah, those dates of the screening committee, I'm going to use those dates with Ms. Cooper in her correspondence to all the stakeholder groups. We want to make sure that someone is going to be at these meetings. We don't want somebody scheduling a vacation, obviously, and they're going to miss 2 or 3 of these meetings. This is a very important position. You know, this is the biggest decision that this board will make, probably. And also, it will be a big decision that the search committee will have in their role in this process. So I'm going to try to stick with these committee dates as much as possible. Now, if someone cannot make it, then and obviously we would change it for maybe a night or two. But when teachers start nominating people to be on this committee, the classified and the different stakeholder groups, I'm going to have the correspondence to say, you need to be here on these nights. Don't nominate someone that's not going to be available on these nights. It's somewhat fluid. I'm going to try to stick to those committee meeting nights as much as possible. As far as the night of naming a new superintendent and your interviews with that is completely fluid. You see, I put plus or minus when I got to the last 2 days. I don't know how long the board will want to take before they start interviewing candidates. I certainly don't know about the date a new superintendent will be named, but I would think it would be in that ballpark, but that would be fluid at that point.
Okay, in looking at this, and Mr. Hawkins has noted on the April 19th, the joint meeting, that is actually a board meeting night for us too.
Okay.
And then the same with the 26th.
Okay.
those aren't noted.
So,
You looked on
I don't-
our student
yeah.
calendar, I'm sure, and the board meetings aren't noted on there, so we may have to just adjust those.
That will be fine.
Okay.
That will be fine. Some districts like to have it on a board meeting night at the end of the schedule that will already be addressed. Or they can have it prior to a board meeting night. Some boards don't like to be out, any more than they have to. And they would prefer to have it on the same night. But that is completely up to this board when you'd want that second joint meeting.
My thought is that, our board meetings may be long enough already. We probably don't need to add on to that. So.
Yeah, we could maybe agree to a timeline and with the understanding that they may move a little bit according to the wishes of this board.
Sure, that'd be fine. All right, so then we will move on to do we want to discuss the posting next?
Well, yes. Let's discuss the scope of the search, if that would be okay.
Of course.
Most of the districts in Kentucky do not go outside the borders of the state of Kentucky with much advertisement. When we posted on the KSBA site, and it's also on the KDE site, I send messages to all the superintendents in Kentucky to spread the word of people they think might be interested. We have pretty good luck with that. However, some districts, and it's mostly in those districts that border other states, they like to advertise in neighboring states sometimes. For example, in Boone County, we advertised in the Cincinnati Enquirer, the newspaper. We also advertised on the Education Week site, which is topschooljobs.com, which is an arm of Education Week. Now, I have to preface that by saying that's expensive. Once you go to the national publication and start publicizing and posting your advertisement, you're looking in the neighborhood at least of close to $1,000 for a 2 or 3 week run in each one of those publications. So I've done it both ways, obviously, over the years. So we probably need to have a discussion about the scope, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And when you have used those advertisement, how much has that expanded the candidate pool? Are you able to kind of give an assessment of that?
Well, just off the cuff, it's probably just a few. Most of the time, the candidates know where to go if they're looking for positions in Kentucky. If they're out of state, we have a number of candidates that monitor the KSBA site regularly to see new postings. In Boone County, I think we got 2 applications as a result of posting out of state, maybe 3. It's not a great deal, to be honest with you.
Okay. We'll go around on this. Ms. Springate?
I mean, obviously we want to have a diverse pool and we want to have, as many candidates as possible to have a good applicant pool. But honestly, I just value your expertise. If you feel like that's something that works well, if you border states and maybe is worth the money versus, where we are geographically, so really whatever your advice is, I'm fine with that either way.
Okay. Ms. Richardson?
No, thank you.
Ms. McHale?
I'm fine with keeping it in state.
Okay. And Ms. Glass?
I think in-state stuff as well.
Okay. I think that we'll follow your advice on that. I think that, being fiscally responsible and not seeing a lot of bang for your buck on that makes sense. I think there's also something to be said for in-state knowledge with all of the different funding mechanisms and things like that. That's a huge advantage.
That is correct, yes. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we have in principle, we've, I think, had agreement on the timeline. We've had agreement on the scope of the search. So I guess the advertisement is what we need to discuss now. I sent you a sample. You won't hurt my feelings whatsoever about putting the red pen to that, so to speak, and edit that or completely start. I just sent that as a conversation starter. We can go in any direction the board wishes.
Okay. I think first I'll read the sample that you have sent so that those people that are watching can kind of be aware of what we're looking at in case they don't have access to the agenda. The vacancy for superintendent is as follows. The Woodford County Board of Education is seeking an outstanding educator with leadership skills capable to extend the momentum of excellence in Woodford County schools. The Woodford County School District has long been considered one of Kentucky's best in providing opportunities for success for all students. It is a district that sets high expectations and provides a supportive atmosphere that produces outstanding achievement for both students and staff. The successful candidate should have a reputation as an open, approachable, ethical, and enthusiastic leader who is actively involved and visible throughout the district. Candidates should possess a passion for enhancing student achievement, strategic financial management, as well as a commitment for high expectations and performance. The successful candidate should have the ability to relate to all constituents. Woodford County is located in the heart of the desirable bluegrass region of central Kentucky, only 15 miles from Lexington, 50 miles from Louisville, and 90 miles from Cincinnati. Versailles, the county seat, has a reputation as a quaint community with a community vision of thoughtful planning and participation. Midway has a rich history of thoroughbred horses being the epicenter of the thoroughbred industry with a nationally renowned Airdrie stud, Three Chimneys, and Lane's End Farm calling Midway their home. Midway is also a dining destination and is home to some of the best restaurants in central Kentucky. Kentucky superintendent certification is required. A competitive salary will be offered for a July 1st, 2021 contract start. To apply, please go to KSBA's website and click under superintendent search. I will say I had very few changes on my thoughts on this. I would, in the third paragraph, the sentence that has quaint community, I would change with a community vision. I would change that word to comprehensive vision of thoughtful planning and participation. I think if there's anything that board members feel that they want to draw specific attention to that isn't in here, we can go through that now. But I think it's a pretty comprehensive listing. Ms. Springate?
No, I thought it was nice. I really liked how you described the community. I think that's a really good selling tool.
Ms. Richardson?
I'll second what Madam Chair said.
Ms. McHale?
The only thing that I thought maybe we could enhance a little bit is in the second paragraph when we're talking about strategic financial management. I think that we need to mention something about the major capital project that we have to work through the high school. So somebody that has some experience with planning, executing, funding for those types of large-scale projects, I think would be helpful.
Do you want to list that as a preferred qualification?
Yeah, that could work too.
Okay.
A preferred
Mr. Martin, is that something that you feel like you could add in?
Yeah, would you like to restate that? I can hear you very well. I can't hear some of the other members.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My thought was to enhance the strategic financial management section of the posting. Ms. Bradley suggested having it in one of the preferred qualifications, but I would like it to reference previous experience with large capital projects, such as our high school that's coming up.
Sure. Yeah, that is very important.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Class?
Successful experience with capital projects. I will put that at some point in there. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
No, I think it sounds great.
Okay, so we had very few changes. Mr. Hawkins, is there anything that you see, having done this job, that, that we have omitted or it would be beneficial to add? No? Okay. Okay, then I
Madam
think,
Chairman, if I may, could you, make those changes on your copy and send me a copy of that, if that would be okay?
yes, yep, I'm happy to do that, and we can,
I didn't hear quite what your edit was, so if you, on the first thing that you said, so if you would edit that and then put in, that clause about the successful experience with capital projects, that would be helpful.
yes, we definitely don't want to experiment.
Play a warrant. Yeah,
Okay, I'm making a note of that now, and I will give that to Ms. Cooper, and she can get that to you before your time to talk tomorrow.
That'd be great. Okay, now, before we get to probably the most important part, the number of finalists. I always like to ask the Board of Education at the second joint meeting, the search committee is going to present their recommendation. I always like to have the committee give me their preference on how many names they would like to hear. You're going to have all the folders and all the information after the meeting is over that evening to go through all of those. But as far as recommended candidates from the search committee, I like to have a number that I can guide the committee toward. Because if the board wants 8 and the committee can't come up with 8, it presents a little bit of a problem or something of that nature. So let's have a discussion about the number of finalists that you would like to see.
Can you give a couple examples, maybe your last 3 searches that you have done, how many finalists they requested?
I would say that almost every district falls in a neighborhood of 5 to 7. I did have one district that wanted 10, and it was a struggle, to be honest with you, to find 10 candidates that the search committee could get behind. I always tell the search committee, don't throw names in there as courtesy or anything like that, because the names that we're going to give to the board, are going to be names that they truly recommend that will be possibly the next superintendent of Woodford County. So I try to make it as important as I can to them to treat it as seriously as they can. So if you have like 10 or 12, you're going to have some fringe candidates. If you narrow that down to around a half a dozen, you should have a strong feeling as recommending candidates.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Springate?
No, I think that number sounds good. If that's in your experience, worked with other districts, 5 to 7 sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Ms. Richardson?
I think five or 6, 6 at the most, in my opinion. If they could bring us 6 solid candidates that we could go through, I think that, saving time, them doing the work before it gets to us really helps us out and helps us kind of narrow it down and not have to look at a pool that's so large that everything kind of gets jumbled together. But I think that if they could come up with that would be great. I don't see any reason in having any more than at least, at the very most, 7.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McHale?
I agree. I think 5 to 7 is perfect.
Okay. Ms. Glass? I agree as well. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And I always tell the board, if at some point, if the committee cannot truly recommend 7 candidates or even 5, they will give you the number of candidates that they truly are recommending. It may be 4. Usually it is not. Usually they have a tough time narrowing it down to 5 or 6. But I have had 1 or 2 districts that the committee only felt comfortable with nominating about 4 candidates to the board. So since I always tell the search committee to stick with the candidates you're really truly behind, then we went to the board with 4 candidates in that case. But that's an anomaly. I think 5 to 7 is a great number.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's talk about criteria. At the first joint meeting of this board and the search committee, one of the items on that agenda will be for the committee to hear from the board about what they would like to see in a superintendent, what to concentrate on when they start looking at superintendent candidates. In other words, what's the criteria that you want the committee to focus upon? And it's fairly important. It's really important because that's what I'm going to be drawing the committee back to in all the discussions. And that's what we're going to be devising questions around when we question certain candidates by video. And that's what the focus will be, because the board at Woodford County, by your board policy, says that criteria for this position will be established by the Board of Education. So, there's all different kinds of ways that boards of education in Kentucky have come up with the criteria. Some of it is about 4 or 5 long, very short paragraphs that the board comes up with. It's very black and white, has things in there about being a great financial leader, being ethical, being a community type person, blah, blah, blah. Some of them get quite elaborate. I did send you a couple from last year. I did send you a copy of the Shelby County, I believe, maybe Boone County or Kenton County, that had a number of bullet items on there. So there's no right or wrong answer to this, but the big thing is, how do you determine what the criteria is going to be? With some boards of education, they just take it upon themselves and say, we were elected by the citizens of the school district. One of the jobs that they gave us was to make decisions like this. And they would come up with a work session and the criteria that they would like the search committee to concentrate on. Other districts obviously do it a little bit more elaborately. And to be honest with you, it's a lot easier to do that in times where there were no pandemics. I moderated quite a few of the public forums prior to 2021, and there were no limits on the amount of people in a room, of course, and things of that nature, where we would concentrate on quality of the superintendent. We would not allow any names, any proper names, or any beefing or anything like that. It would keep it very, very positive and talk about qualities needed for the school district in a time now that's very important. We also have samples that I sent you of a couple of districts that did it electronically. And you may be restricted to that. I don't know what the guidelines on size of meetings are now, to be honest with you. You probably know more about that than I do. So you can do as much or as little as you like there. Some districts did both the form and the online survey, and then edited themselves once they got that into what they would like as a board to see too. So there's no right or wrong answer, but board policy says you will come up with one.
All right.
So probably need to have a discussion.
Okay. I will say, I'll share my thoughts on this first, and then we'll go around and let everyone weigh in. My preference would be that we use this chance for extended outreach to our community. I would like to do a survey on our website and try and bring as much notice to that as we can so that people can weigh in. And then I think if we could do a digital forum and let people have a chance to speak, I think it's important, given the pandemic, to try and make those more readily available rather than kind of dialing it back. That would be my preference, would be to have at least one online forum that Mr. Martin can moderate, and like you said, being very intentionally positive and welcoming input from the community, and then also a survey that we could develop to put on the website. Ms. Springate?
I definitely think we want to have community input. I think it really is a good time probably to be able to do the surveys. I would like for us to be able to reach out beyond just, parents. I think it would be important to do a survey that involves the whole community possibly, and, possibly even students, parents, staff, kind of give that opportunity to everybody. I like some of the samples that you put in our packet. It looks like you've done this before and you have it well in hand. And I also like the idea of having a community forum that really is just focused forward, positive, and then utilizing that information also to assist us with our decisions. So thank you for all the documents that you provided. It really has been very, very helpful. The communication and your expertise is very evident, so thank you.
Thank you. One opportunity that I would have, or a moderator would have, with a digital online forum is to explain the process that the average person does not know. When the average person on the street hears that there's a search committee, they may think that the search committee themselves will be hiring the superintendent, which obviously is not going to happen. Some teachers may think that the search committee hires the superintendent. There's all kinds of miscommunication sometimes if you leave that open for their interpretation. So, yeah, I would be glad to do that. I've also had Brad Hughes. Some of you know Brad that worked at KSBA in the public relations department for many, many years. He's retired now, but sometimes he does those forms for me also. So, yeah, either one of us probably be very willing to do that. Time is of an issue, a little bit of an issue here. If we're going to do it, also a survey on the website, somebody in the district, probably your IT person or someone's going to have to put that together, maybe utilize SurveyMonkey or something of that nature that would accumulate all of those responses into a usable form to present to the board, because that's going to take time. If you try to tabulate all of those online responses, that's going to take time, and then how useful that will be to the board, I'm not sure. So we need to get on that fairly soon if we're going to do an online survey about the questions, and need to keep it as brief as possible to be as useful as possible. What platform we're going to use, whether it's SurveyMonkey or something like that. The district probably has an account with SurveyMonkey, and they will compile, I think, the results for you, and then you have a deadline date to respond to that, and then the information would go out to the board. And eventually, you would need another meeting or two to finalize this criteria before the first joint meeting. So if we were talking about that first joint meeting being, what did I say, March 22nd, all of this would have to be complete and the results compiled, the digital forum where people could participate through Google Meet. All that will be completed. The board would have time to discuss everything all the bits of information that come in, and still have a product ready for the screening committee on March the 22nd.
Okay.
That seems like a long time, but it's not really when you have all of those things that need to be done.
And it looks like, again, March 22nd is our regular board meeting night.
Okay, and that could change too. If you want to move it to another night, that would be fine, because that might be a difficult night, to be honest with you, with the board appointed person to the committee, because we normally have our first meeting on the same night. My part of a board meeting on the March 22nd date, the first joint meeting, the board itself is only there maybe 15 minutes. you talk to the committee about expectations, I give the demographic information, and I dismiss the board except for that one person that's going to be on our committee.
Okay.
That's when I usually have my first meeting. Doesn't have to be that way, but I usually try to restrict the number of times that board members have to be away from home. So
Okay.
that's what
So
I do.
if we looked at getting that data back, we would have our March 15th planning meeting that we could review the survey data. And then if you anticipate that it'll take 2 meetings, we'd still have the 22nd meeting. If we want to shift that joint meeting to the 23rd, is that a acceptable thing to have those 2 meetings that we can kind of review that data and go over it and then have that ready?
That would be fine. We don't have to have it on 23rd. If someone's not available that night, we could have some other night close to that.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
So what I would do
I'm
is,
sorry, I need
if the
to
board
finish
tonight
going
to
around.
come up with that date, the first joint meeting, I may revise some of my other committee meeting dates a little bit, maybe a night or 2, in relation to that date.
Okay. Then going back so that each board member has a chance to weigh in on the aspects of community input, I know I asked Ms. Springate. Ms. Richardson?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have the community be able to give their input in the form of a forum. I just want to make sure that we stay on track and that we realize that time is of the essence and we need to move it along. So, do you think that we should do that in the next week or 2 weeks? How long should we wait before we do that?
I would like to have at least 1 week that we could advertise it in the newspaper so that we do reach a larger audience, like Ms. Springate said, than just our parents and staff. I think, there's a lot of people that read the newspaper for their local updates, and we want to be cognizant of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That would be good. I think that's a good point. Try to take at least a week to spread the word. And just to be honest with you, at this forum, board members are not expected to respond. They're there to listen. Now, you can, if you want to, obviously, answer a question, but I'm going to instruct the people that log in to give their views, not to ask the board a question. They're there to provide input from the board, and I will say that the board probably will not respond to your comment. Your role that evening is try to take as many notes as you can with as many issues and bits of information that the community provides you, and not be vocal. What we don't want is a lot of back and forth, really.
Absolutely.
Between the public and the board. It's just information for the board. If that gets going in that direction, I will try to cease that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McHale?
I agree. I think we do need to have a community forum. I would really like the idea of having it before these surveys go out. And one thing I would hope is that we could review the survey during the community forum and let people know this is coming as well. I think as far as getting community input, I know we put everything in the paper, we put it on our website, but I would really like to see us, if it's possible, and I'm not sure it is, but to engage with the online community of the Woodford Sun and the Chamber of Commerce. Emily and I can't think of his name, but the 2 people that are working with the Chamber of Commerce, they are everywhere these days.
They are everywhere.
And I think they would do a great job getting the word out and getting the information out for us. There's other women's leagues and things like that I think if we can hopefully engage them in the process as well, it'll get to more of those non-school parents to get their input.
I think that's a great idea, and I think both of our mayors here in Woodford County and our judge executive would also be willing to help spread that in the online forums as well.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to think. I've never done this over Google about having a forum of citizens. I'm trying to think how I would call on a person. Do we have any ideas on how I would do that?
Actually, Mr. Gibson is here. He's our IT manager for the district director, and I think it might be the best to let him weigh in on this.
The only issue you're going to run into is if we give out the link, the Google Meet link, just like you have a Meet link tonight, anybody can join that link if we make it open enough to do that. The issue is going to be maximum capacity, because Google does have a maximum capacity of just over 200 folks. I think 250 is definitely the max. So if you have more than 250 people on that link, then we would have issues. So what we may have to do is open it up, let people talk through the technology, just like we're all doing right here and now, and have people log out of the link as they give their comments. And when they're finished, that way it would open up another spot for more people to get in. And if all the while we've got it on the YouTube public channel, people could be watching the YouTube channel, waiting to get a spot on the link, and kind of going back and forth that way. That's the only way I can figure we can make that all happen.
Is there like
Yeah, I was trying to think how that would operate, and I was getting a little bit nervous because obviously the only time I've done this is when you have a room full of people.
I think the other opportunity is we could invite people to submit their questions in advance if they wanted to, or their statements in advance, and you could read those. That would probably cut down on our numbers a great deal. Mr. Gibson, is Zoom, does it have the same limitations as far as?
The problem we have with Zoom is we don't have a district account with Zoom, whereas we do have an enterprise account with Google.
Okay.
And without that, the meeting would have to be a maximum of 45 minutes.
Okay.
So we'd run into time limitations with Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
And is there a lobby or a waiting room in Google Meets? I know in Microsoft Teams, there's a lobby, and the meeting host has to actually, you can set it up that you let X number of people in, and then you can make them leave. So we could maybe control that a little better.
You are correct with Teams. We, as a Google district, we have Microsoft accounts, but we don't have the level of Microsoft account that gives us Teams at that level of access.
And Meets does not have that.
And Meets has what is called breakout rooms, but that's only for the enterprise licensed people, and the general public would not be enterprise licensed. So it would be complicated to do.
I do think
and Zoom has breakout rooms too, but
I do think a lot of people, given the chance, would submit their statements in advance. I think a lot of people don't even want to do it in a public meeting, so that might be an answer for us.
I agree. I think that, I can double check, but I think that Midway did a city council forum for the election, and they did it was via Zoom, but I'm pretty certain that they submitted their questions beforehand. So I think, and I agree, I think that people may not want to be, put on the spot, maybe to ask their questions specifically. And that also may cut down on some of the back and forth that Mr. Martin was talking about. I know he mentioned, I don't know if it's an option that we would want to look at considering offering, I don't know exactly the specifics for what in-person rules are. As far as if we thought that the number was going to be high up to where the cutoff is for the Google Meet, if we wanted to make it an opportunity for staff members maybe to come in person, if we could have it in a big enough place that could space. I don't know if that would maybe, and then your community could log on, virtually, if that's something that would even be an option as well. I'm not sure what the criteria is for that.
I think you may run into an issue with the open meetings if you are determining who can attend in person and who cannot attend in person. So I think that could be problematic.
Okay. And do we want to try and set a date for the forum?
Mr. Gibson, are you going to be on site for this, or could you be on site for this?
Of course.
Well, my plan would be that I would travel to Versailles and be with you. And you would sort of handle the IT part of that, and I would handle the content, so that would be workable.
I kind of figured that was going to be a question asked.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And if the other board members, I don't know if everyone wants to plan to attend and do this the way that we normally do, or if you want to log on virtually, that can be an option as well. But I'd hate for anybody to get kicked out inadvertently or anything like that. So it may be better to plan to do it the way we're used to. And that is something, Mr. Martin, our community has gotten accustomed to doing doing their comments in advance, to have public comments during all of our meetings. They submit those and we open the window, at midnight, the day of our meetings. So that is not out of the norm for us.
Okay. Do we have a date that we can arrive at?
So if we're going to look in February, looking at the district calendar, and just for our board members, our meetings in February are on the 16th and the 22nd. And I'm guessing, Mr. Martin, you would rather stay in the first couple of weeks to get the information back?
Probably. As far as the public forum, is that what we're discussing now, the public forum? Or are we talking about the online survey?
No, this would be the public forum.
The public forum, basically the board is going to be taking notes very rapidly during that night of the input from the community. And I will just be the moderator that probably will not be taking a lot of notes. I'll be keeping the meeting moving. So there won't be a summary list from me. It will be the board members taking notes. If you want to have someone that can scribe very rapidly to scribe for the board, that would be great too. Probably a couple weeks, and then the board's going to have a day or two to try to share with each other.
And I think to kind of facilitate what Ms. McHale said, if we could have that and then have that information before we set up the survey, she was thinking that might be helpful to guide the survey questions a little bit more and tailor those to being more Woodford County specific. Is that what you were thinking?
Well, I like that idea. I was also thinking just take the time to explain to the community that the survey is coming out, how it's going to be coming out, how to submit it, and not necessarily the content, but I do like that idea of using the public comment to drive some of that as well.
Okay. Then looking at your calendars, the week of February 8th through the 12th.
I'm afraid that doesn't give us enough time to advertise as the only
Well, that's
thing.
what I was looking at. What week?
The deadline for the Woodford Sun is Monday morning or by noon on a Monday for that Thursday's advertisement.
Okay. Ms. Cooper said that the deadline is Monday at noon to be in the Thursday paper. So we'll need to look at that next week, the 15th through the 19th. And we have a meeting on the 16th. So,
and the 18th.
Yeah, we do. So,
how about the 17th?
Okay. Is there, and looks like the only thing on the district's calendar that week is there's a boys basketball game on the 17th.
Does Wednesday interfere with church?
I think Mr. Hawkins said that's.
Some are starting to open back up for some Wednesday things, but I don't know how many at this point. I know for a long time they weren't doing anything, but I think we're starting to see a little bit more back in person with some things, but again, I think that's your own decision.
Okay, then do we want to set that for February 17th, the community forum, to solicit input on the superintendent search?
That is Ash Wednesday.
Let's not do
That's
that.
right, yeah.
I guess we'll look at Monday the 15th.
That's a holiday.
That's President's Day.
Is there a reason we can't do it on the 18th?
We
I
have
couldn't
a
hear what
meeting
Mr.
that
Hawkins
night.
said.
We've got the attorney selection meetings that night.
On the 18th.
Yeah, the 16th and the 18th.
Can we do a Friday night? Is there an issue with that?
I think typically Mr. Hawkins has recommended against it just because you don't get as much participation. Is that correct, Mr. Hawkins?
I mean, I don't think you would get the level of participation on Friday
Sure.
night.
Yeah.
Then
The
Is
23rd?
pushing it too far back to do it before the meeting on the 22nd?
that's what I was. We would have to put, if we put it on the 22nd, we would have to put a cap on the time limit and do it either immediately prior to the meeting. And I think we run into people aren't home from work yet to get in before a 6 o'clock meeting. So we may need to look at the 23rd. And then that gives us from the 23rd until the joint meeting. So almost a month between the community forum being on February 23rd and then the joint meeting on March 22nd. And that would give us time to put the survey up for 7 days and have that back before that joint meeting. And it looks like we're going to have to push that March 22nd to at least March 23rd because that is a regularly scheduled board meeting. So we would have the 22nd meeting.
And we could move that March 23rd meeting. I mean, we could move that a week if you'd like, to around the 30th or something like. If it's going to be too much for the board to try to get all these things done, let's extend that meeting of the second joint meeting with the committee. We can just extend it for another week. There's no hard and fast rule that says it has to be 22nd or 23rd if the board wants to move that back.
That pushes us into spring break.
Oh, okay, yeah. I forgot about that.
The 29th to April 2nd is spring break, so it may be best to keep that in that same week that you had it scheduled already.
Okay.
So if I have this correct, then we would look at having the community forum on February 23rd. Sorry, I'm making notes as we go. On 2/23, and having an advertisement in the paper leading up to that. And then we would have our meetings in March on the 15th and 22nd to go over the input that we get back from the survey and have that kind of wrapped up before the joint committee meeting on the 23rd. On 3/23. So is everyone? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Cooper.
Time frame for the community forum. What time do you want to start it?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Starting time for the forum, and do you want to put an ending time?
I would say stick with what people are familiar with and go 6 to 8, if that's agreeable with everyone else. Ms. Springate?
Yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. McHale?
Yes.
And Ms. Glass?
Yes, that's good.
And does that work for you, Ms. Cooper?
Back to the public comments being sent in written format, is there any reason why we can't expand, let them go ahead and just turn them in at any time instead of waiting for that day?
I would think that we should just have a big window of opportunity. I don't think the question was, can we make the window that people can submit their input bigger than what it normally is for our board meetings? And I would say yes, that when we're reaching out and asking people to weigh in, we want to be as welcoming of that as we possibly can. So any time that they submit it prior to that would be fine with me, if the board agrees with that. Ms. Briggs?
Yeah, I definitely think the more input the better, and it should be as easy as possible.
Okay. Ms. Richardson?
I agree.
Ms. McHale?
Agreed.
And Ms. Glass? Yeah, agreed. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Angel, is there any other cleanup that you can think of here?
Not for the specifics that I need for the advertisement. This will take care of the advertisement.
Okay.
We do want to advertise it as a virtual community forum or a digital, he's been using digital, but some kind of format like that with we'll come up with some descriptions.
Okay.
Bradley, do you want me to send that to you to send to the board?
Yeah, I
come
think
up
that'd
with
be
the
perfect.
advertisement, let you look at it.
Yep, that sounds good. What Ms. Cooper said is that she will put together an ad for a virtual or a digital community forum and put the specifics that she works with Mr. Gibson together on how to log into that and the opportunities for the public to send their comments in advance with her email address or whichever email address is best suited for that. And then just let people know that kind of this is the tone. We're looking for positive community input, and we will avoid using any names or specifics. Kind of let people know what we're thinking on that.
Ms. Bradley, I will send you suggested guidelines for that. I think we use same guidelines for the written communication as well as the oral communication. So I will send you the guidelines that I've used in other districts if you would like to use that.
That would be perfect. If you'll send those to Ms. Cooper and the board, that would be great. And I think too, we have learned we need to put time limits on the submitting.
It does have time limits.
Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Martin, moving on.
So let me make sure I have that right. The public forum is going to be at 6 p.m. on the 23rd of February. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
And then the joint meeting of the committee and the board will be March 23rd at 6 p.m.
That's correct. And between those two meetings, after the community forum, within that next week, we'll try and develop the survey questions and get those posted on the district website so that people can log on when that works for them and answer those. And we'll have them back in time for our March 15th meeting. So if you are able to attend to that meeting, we can add an agenda item to go over the survey results. And Mr. Gibson, did you have thoughts on the best survey mechanism?
Yes, we've got Google Forms that we can set up. We've got lots of experience using it as well as setting the data up the way you want it on the back end. And it dumps everything into a spreadsheet so you can manipulate it that way too. So that's going to be the easiest platform for us to use.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds good.
All right.
That's about all I have. The only remaining item with the board is that during one of these meetings, you'll have several of them, that the board chair will choose a member of the search committee from the board. That member can be the board chair himself or herself, or it can be any other member of the board. Probably about 40% of the time, the board chair serves on the committee. About 60% of the time, the board chair chooses another member of the board to be on that committee. But whoever is chosen, that will be an appointment. It won't be a vote, is the way it's written in the law. But it has to be logged into a board meeting minute for the record. And that person would be expected to be at all of these meetings, not only the first and second joint forum, but all the committee meetings in the interval when we discuss the different candidates for the job.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that brings us to an end.
Okay, I would like to, Mr. Hawkins, are you going to be available with Ms. Cooper tomorrow for maybe a conference call?
Sure, we can do that.
I would like to get that. I'm going to send Ms. Cooper some templates that we have been successful in using with other districts about stakeholder elections. Keep in mind that you may get a little pushback from different people about the stakeholder elections. Usually the teachers' elections, the ones that if there's going to be a little controversy, that's the one that'll be controversial about the teachers decide who teachers are. And sometimes it gets a little blurry with administrative positions. But what I would try to do is get with Mr. Hawkins, Ms. Cooper, and the people I need to speak with to make sure everybody is on the same page before any teacher or administrator is nominated for any of the positions. Make sure everybody knows what the game plan is going to be before we put any ballots out there about voting. So I have a plethora of templates that I can give the district on communication to each one of these stakeholder groups, and I'm going to share that tomorrow.
Okay, is that good with you, Mr. Hawkins? All right. Anything further that we need to address?
I don't believe so.
All right, very good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Thank you.
sign. Oh, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Meeting adjourned. Bob, can we help you put these away?